Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment question comes from Jack and Jill Marley, 1988. Richard, and it's in response to music workstation crafts solely for their purpose, a mailbag I did in January 2023. And Richard writes, I think I previously mentioned one example of a workstation being better than a sound module rack, and that's comparing the Roland D-70 to the Roland U-220. But with the Roland D-70, they didn't make a rack version called the D-770. So if you prefer racks over workstations, then the Roland U-220 is as close to a module as you can get for the D-70. Actually, the U-220 is more comparable to the Roland MV30, which is a desktop sequencing module, but that's not. But in the not too distant future, I'm also hoping to get a Korg M1 and a Korg O1. And in my case, having the rack versions is more a question of having limited space, although the Korg M1 and Korg O1 rack versions can be a little hard to obtain. I might be willing to have at least one of those in keyboard form, or I might just settle for a Korg M1R and a Korg O5W, which is like a mini O1W or an O1RW, plus the O5W also supports general MIDI. Now, unpacking that. To set the scene, the Roland D-70, as I've mentioned many times on this channel, was intended to actually be the Roland U-50. It is actually stamped like that on the main circuit board if you open the machine up, and the aim was to be a more capable Roppler than the previous released Roland U-20. And I think that in that narrative, I think we can agree it probably does achieve that purpose. Now, the Roland MV30 and the Roland U series do share some lineage, with some MV30 cards actually being capable of being read within the Roland D-70, and some of the U-110 cards also being able to be read by the MV30. But not all of them can be read or can be cross-fertilized in such a way. Now, I did have a list of compatible cards some time back, but for the life of me, I can't find it. It's not in my filing system, so I may have stored it on a machine that I haven't booted up for a while. Could be on my old Mac actually. But it did actually say which card from the U110 series and which card from the MV30 series actually worked on different machines. But there is some cross compatibility in the way the architecture works, but not all the cards work. So that's really important. And the other thing about the Roland U series is that unless the card came from Roland, and a lot of people don't realise this, but unless the card came from Roland, it's not like the D series where other manufacturers sort of jumped in like Ritter, etc., and made tone cards for them. Sound Source Unlimited being another example. With the U series, only the tone cards that came from Roland worked. So you were kind of stuck in that ecosystem. But it was a good ecosystem to be stuck in because they had some really good sounds. So the other thing is, and just moving on to the sort of Korg M1, that while this is still a PCM sample-based system, it is actually far more flexible than the U series and the D series. And to be honest, the Korg M1 is a worthy addition to anybody's studio who is looking for that classic sound that you get out of an M1. The M1 is very distinctive. It has some very classic sounds and was used extensively for years and years and years after it was discontinued. And I still use mine now. Well, I would do if it was in storage. Next common question comes from the Death Beats in response to Moog USA gone, not coming back. Moog, why have they not done a cheaper sub-brand? A video I did in December 2023. And Gary writes, it's going to be really interesting to see if they can maintain an affordable Moog brand in a dignified way, as opposed to being obvious that they are putting out a cheaper machine to compete with the likes of Behringer and Roland, etc. I'm also interested to see how the VST side of their business is going to evolve. I recently purchased the Moog Marina at a bargain price of £50. I have to say it sounds incredible. They've put a lot of work into the interface and the workflow. However, even on a high-spec PC, I am seeing a jump of 50% in CPU usage in my Cubase Pro environment simply by adding a single instance of the Moog Marina to a project file. That suggests to me they've not quite got their eye on the ball here and requires further development. Well, I don't use the Moog Marina, and I know Gary uses a lot of VST, so and then I know he really gets to into the guts of the VST as well. So if he's saying it seems to be CPU hungry, I suspect it's probably not a great. It's not being coded particularly well. It needs a lot more work on it. But it is interesting to see if Moog do come up with an alternative while capturing the Moogness of the Moog, if that makes any sense. And it's definitely one to watch to see how this kind of develops out. But what I would say is, going back to the VST side of it, and again, I think there is much debate in the music industry about whether VSTs will deprecate hardware or whether hardware will continue. There are many views that have been floated to me. One is that, you don't know what you're talking about. Of course, then it's not going to deprecate hardware, and other people are saying, well, VSTs are going to steal the march. What I would still say is manufacturers are still selling hardware, so that kind of tells me something. But I think the environment is going to be much more of a hybrid environment between computers, VSTs, and hardware being used in a setup, as opposed to all of one and all of another. And I think we've been in that environment for a number of years. It's just we're kind of deluding ourselves it's one way or the other. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how beta testers fix the Moog Mariana program, because what I see, or VST should I say, what I see a lot here is manufacturers releasing product to market, especially software product to market, which is not correctly finished. And at the point of recording this, Yamaha had just released the Yamaha Montage MESP, and the initial feedback on that is, yes, but where's the rest of the functions? So read into those comments what you will.